Today, you're scheduled to discuss seeking justice through ethical decision-making. And in ordinary times, that would be a worthy topic. And in ordinary times, I talk to you about the importance of ethics, about the importance of guarding that reservoir of trust and credibility that each of us is gifted with when we become prosecutors. But as this virtual setting of ours makes clear, these aren't ordinary times. As of this morning, we lost over 8,800 of our fellow New Jerseyans to COVID-19, while at least 133,000 more are currently battling this virus, including thousands in ICUs across New Jersey. And they're not just numbers. There are friends, there are colleagues, there are neighbors, there are loved ones. There are heroes, our firefighters, our cops, our doctors, our nurses, our school principals. And some are also individuals for whom we bear a special responsibility. They include those in custodial settings where this virus is hitting particularly hard. 27 young people in the care of our Juvenile Justice Commission are currently battling COVID-19, as are so many others in our county juvenile detention system. They also include over 40 inmates in our state prisons and jails who have died as a result of this virus, and over 200 more who are fighting it right now. Like I said, these aren't ordinary times. We have no silver bullet yet to defeat this invisible and deadly enemy. And the only proven tool we have in our arsenal is social distancing. Through a series of carefully crafted executive orders that strike that balance between public health and public safety on the one hand, and individual rights and freedoms on the other, we've encouraged our residents to stay home. We've banned gatherings. We've closed our schools and universities. We've asked our non-essential businesses to make huge sacrifices. And as a result, we can't work, we can't celebrate, we can't protest, we can't pray, we can't act, we can't meet as we once did. These are extraordinary measures, and they're sacrifices, and they're things that we wouldn't contemplate in normal times. But they're working. They're working to flatten the curve. They're working to relieve the pressure on our healthcare system. And they're working in large part because of the dedication of our heroes, our cops. And they're working because each of you are out there enforcing them. At first, we were warning violators, but then we pivoted quickly to enforcement when individuals continued to flout these executive orders. We did that because both public safety and public health required it, as deaths were mounting across our state. And even though our courts are closed, each of you have stepped up, adapted, and found ways to charge these violators, to hold them accountable, as well as ways to hold others accountable who undermine our collective safety in the midst of a pandemic. You all are saving lives right now. And I couldn't be more proud of the creative ways in which you continue to step up and to serve the residents of our state under such difficult circumstances. But for us to continue delivering justice in the age of COVID-19, because we are truly living in a historical moment, we as prosecutors, we all have to get outside of our comfort zones. We simply cannot bury our heads in the sand and wish that things will get better. We can't continue to do things as we once did and hope that there won't be a second wave. We can't put our responsibilities on hold until this pandemic ends or until it becomes a little bit easier for us to do our jobs. Justice requires us to get uncomfortable right now. In ordinary times, I wouldn't issue guidance to law enforcement across our state, asking them to delay the filing of criminal charges in cases that don't imminently affect public safety. But given the limited personal protective equipment our cops have right now, given the dangers they face on the front lines at this time, justice requires that our officers focus on the most serious offenses. And we're not alone here. Prosecutors across the country have followed suit. Similarly, as a career prosecutor, I take absolutely no pleasure in temporarily suspending jail sentences, even for lower-level inmates. Nor do I think that we should be voluntarily working to reduce the sentences of our juvenile offenders, who, given the strides that we've already made in this state in reducing that population, are among the most dangerous of our young offenders. But folks, this is the most significant public health emergency in our state's history, and hopefully in our lifetimes. And when it ends, all of us, we all need to look ourselves in the mirror and ask ourselves, did we do everything possible in this moment to protect the lives of all our state's residents, including those who are incarcerated? And that's why I'm so thankful that our county prosecutors and each of you have stepped up to work to reduce these populations and at the same time ensure that dangerous felons weren't released in the process. Public safety, public health, this moment required that. Here too, New Jersey's been a leader. We've led the way as jurisdictions across the country are now seeing how COVID-19 is ravaging their jail populations and are following suit with policies like the ones we enacted here. And this is not about pushing progressive policies right now. It's not about partisanship. It's about public safety. It's about saving lives. That's why Attorney General Barr, using newly granted authority under the CARES Act, is working to remove vulnerable inmates from federal incarceration. It's also why ICE has been quietly releasing inmates from federal civil immigration confinement, often from the same jails in New Jersey where we implemented our program. Like I said, these aren't ordinary times. Chief Justice Rabner recently authored an op-ed in which he highlighted the importance of the rule of law and the critical role that the courts play in our democratic society. And he identified ways in which the state judiciary is ensuring access to the courts, so civil, criminal, and family proceedings can continue. This group knows well what I'm talking about. Some of you have been participating in remote arraignments and detention hearings. Others of you have been using this technology to keep investigations moving, conducting witness interviews and proffers using video conferencing. And all of you are adapting and doing your part to ensure that violent actors are being held accountable and that our communities are safe, even in the midst of this pandemic. I recently saw all of this on display firsthand as state troopers and deputy attorneys general from my office worked with Salem County Prosecutor's Office detectives and assistant prosecutors to bring to justice 9 individuals involved in the attempted murder of a state trooper and in related crimes. In a matter of days, they used these new methods to arraign and detain defendants. They used these new methods to proffer witnesses and to identify additional co-conspirators and to move that case forward. But to continue to move that case forward right now, and all investigations for that matter, we also need to find a temporary solution to how grand juries will operate during this pandemic or in the next one. And to this end, the Chief Justice and the Supreme Court recently convened a working group to review the viability of virtual grand juries. Listen, I couldn't agree with all the criticism anymore. They are not ideal. I have serious concerns about the secrecy issues and implications and about the security issues and implications posed by virtual grand juries. But I agreed to explore the issue and to pilot a statewide virtual grand jury. Why? Because in the midst of a once-in-a-life pandemic, justice requires me to get a little bit uncomfortable right now. The 9 defendants sitting in county jail right now for their involvement in that trooper shooting shouldn't have to sit there indefinitely while we hope this pandemic passes, while we hope that a second wave doesn't emerge, while we hope that grand jurors will eventually feel comfortable returning to courthouses across our state. But equally important, that trooper's family, who I spoke to the morning after their son was shot and escaped with his life, that family shouldn't have to wait indefinitely for justice. And each of you as prosecutors shouldn't have to wait years before you try those cases after we clear the backlog that's mounting right now. You shouldn't have to try those cases hoping that in the interim, in those years, witnesses' memories didn't fade. So by agreeing to partner in these efforts, I'm not only ensuring that our Division of Criminal Justice will be in a position to offer safeguards and suggestions concerning this temporary solution, but I'm also ensuring that our investigations can continue to move forward using the grand jury, and that I could keep our detectives and our prosecutors working at this difficult time. And perhaps after that pilot, we may have to resign ourselves that a delay in grand jury proceedings has to happen until public health concerns have abated, and grand juries can physically and safely reconvene. But in the meantime, I'm willing to get outside of my comfort zone to work towards justice. You know, Justice Jackson famously observed that the prosecutor has more control over life, liberty, and reputation than any other person in America. His discretion is tremendous. But that discretion only means something if you have the courage to exercise it. So, at this difficult time, I encourage each of you to be courageous and to get uncomfortable in this moment, because that is what justice requires of each of us right now.